Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And joining us today is Dallin Smith from Offhand Disney on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us, Dallin.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to talk about some spooky attractions here to get in the mood for the spookiest season of the year.
For today's episodes, we're changing things up a bit and doing a top 5 episode in a format that will be familiar to any of those who are fans of our previous podcast, The Saddest Podcast on Earth. Here's how this will work. We're going to break down our top 5 scariest Disney rides, as well as share what we believe to be the least scary ride on Disney property. Our top 5 list is a consensus between the three of us, formed by a point system. Dallin, Byron, and I each made our own personal top 5 lists, and a ranking of first is worth 5 points. A ranking of second is worth 4, and so on and so on and so on. And then I tallied the scores to create this aggregate Frankenstein ranking. As such, only I know the contents of the list, and the rankings will be revealed to not only you guys, but Dallin and Byron too. So for instance, if Byron was scared shitless by Dumbo and ranked that first, it would get 5 points for Byron's list.
How did you know that?
But let's say Dallin and I had more level heads, and it didn't even crack our top 5s, didn't even sniff them, then Dumbo would receive 0 points from both of our lists. The combo of the 3 lists results in 5 total points for Dumbo, and from there, I tally up the scores to form an aggregate top 5. Sound good? All right.
Easy peasy.
This also means that the list can be vulnerable to what we refer to as a muscle job, in which somebody purposely lists something higher than it should be so they can sneak it onto the aggregate list. I'm looking at you, Byron, and I looked at your list, and I do think you have a muscle job on here that is egregious. And as always, please like and subscribe to keep us alive. If you're watching the video version over on youtube.com/@FYApod, the new channel we're on now. Or if you're listening to the audio version, subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. And consider supporting us on our fourth wall, which is basically a more creator-friendly version of Patreon. You can join our fourth wall and become a park hopper, as we're calling it, by heading over to FYApod.com. Not only will it keep this madness going, but you'll also get up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to the free main show you're tuning into now. And finally, FYA Pod is also where our merch is, which is where you see this little goofy ride shirt that I have on and Byron has a beanie on. Anyways, all that table setting aside here, thank you once again for coming on, Dallin. I was very excited. I reached out to you about this, I want to say like 2 months ago.
It was a while ago, yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna make sure we get Dallin locked down for spooky season.
Yes. I'm
gonna assume, and I assumed this before I saw your list, I'm not giving anything away, that there would be some sort of mansion representation here.
In a way, yeah, you could. There is a form of the mansion on this list.
More on that later. I had some questions about that.
I assumed so that I would have to.
So excited to explain this.
By the way, just before we get into this, the list, because we're going to just jump right into it. We're going to start revealing our number 5. But before we do that, how was it making this list for you guys? Was it harder, easier than expected?
Well, for me, I was just sort of going back in my memory about what Disney rides I was like made a mental note, like, oh, this is kind of eerie right now. So there's different rides in here that you wouldn't expect to be on the list, but I have reasoning, and it's only at certain times of the day. Maybe it's under certain circumstances, but I think my list is going to surprise a few people. One of my selections is going to be great. I'm really excited.
And Byron, how about you?
I found it rather challenging in the sense that some rides used to be scarier than what they are today. So I'm like, and I think I had asked you, like, defunct rides are in play.
That's correct. Yeah, that is a disclaimer up top here that we are allowing defunct rides.
However, if I had never experienced it, like, myself, then I'm just kind of left to the videos, and then it's like, am I actually getting an accurate?
Oh, I think you can.
Which I'm sure, like, I don't know. There's one I definitely left off this list that I'm sure is like number 1. I assumed is number 1 for both of you.
We'll see.
So
don't assume you know my list. Don't assume you know my list. Respect my list.
On the list, but everything I put on my list are attractions that I have experienced. But I think I found the challenge was that there's some that I wanted to put on, but in recent years got refurbished to no longer be as scary.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think I have an idea as well. And for me, this list was actually a little tougher than I thought. And this is how it always happens with these lists. Number 1, 2, 3, very easy for me. 4 or 5, especially the 5, that's where it gets a little tough. There were some tough decisions I had to make at the 5 spot. And I actually kind of now, after seeing your guys' lists, wish I would have fought a little harder and maybe did a muscle job myself, because I'm upset that one of them did not make it on.
I'm curious what... Actually, no, I know which one you think is a muscle job for me, but I don't think I put it that high on the list for it to be a muscle job.
I know.
It just happens to be on the list. I don't think that's a muscle. Like if I put it number 1, then sure, it's a muscle.
Fair enough. I will also say that I made my list through the lens of... there's 2 ways you could approach this. You could either approach it by... Disney is making a scary attraction. Is it actually scary? Or you could approach it as, is this ride unintentionally scary? I included both, honestly, but I would say I leaned more towards just overall, does this ride scare me? I don't care if they tried to make it scary. And which, that'll make a little more sense later. Anyways, let's get into our number 5s. Without further ado, let's kick this off.
With the terrifying nature of today's featured attraction, you're probably going to need all the help you can get when it comes to getting a good night's sleep. And why not start with your bed sheets? Traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses. And, well, it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So, you get a better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable, without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the show.
The number 5, scariest Disney attraction, according to us 3, when we put our heads together without knowing it, is the Tower of Terror.
Okay.
It's had a score of 4. It was number 2 on Byron's list. Did not make an appearance on Dallin's, nor did it make an appearance on my list.
That's wild.
That's a bit of a muscle,
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a bit of a muscle job. I
have a little bit of explaining to do.
I don't think so. I put.
Okay. You'll notice that I put Tower of Terror. I did not put the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I kind of wrapped them all up. I think the Tokyo Disney Sea iteration of Tower of Terror.
Okay.
Is rather frightening.
That is interesting because my list, I had Tower of Terror Disneyland Paris.
Oh, that's a good point too. Yeah, the Disneyland Paris one's scary 3, as well.
Which would the old California Adventure one.
Which would then kind of jolt this up the... is that a word? I don't think that's a word. Which would actually push this bad boy up the list a little bit, because right now it only has a score of 4, which only came from your ranking of 2nd place. But I think wrapping them all up, I think you need to specify, because these are wildly different.
Then it's going to take up half my list. Because I would still put the OG Tower of Terror as like a 4 or 5.
Interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe. You're right. Yeah. You might be right, actually.
I thought the original Tower of Terror was so intimidating as a kid that I did not ride it when I was 8 years old.
As a child, absolutely, yeah. I refused to ride it.
I mean, think about like the premise of it and the buildup. You're in like this massive drop tower. It's like you're basically reliving this family that dies in an elevator accident.
Well, I don't know if they were family. Were they family? I thought the little girl was a child star.
It might be like an ensemble. That's right. There's like a little like Shirley Temple.
I think she was like a Shirley Temple kind of like proxy.
That's right. It could have been some strangers.
And then Disney was
nanny,
like, let's kill her.
And then the 2 actors, and then the elevator guy.
Oh yeah, can't forget about the elevator guy.
Mr. Elevator, yeah.
He was just doing his job.
Mr. Elevator. He's the most popular character of the ride. I don't know.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
Not even our guy Rod?
Impressionist Rod Serling.
This is how you may see us. I love his little like jiggle he does when he says that. He does like a little jiggle when he says that. I always enjoy it. A little hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get into it then, Byron, because like I think it's fair to discuss these all at large. I think because I'm specifying it's the Paris one and you're specifying it's all of them. I think having it at 5 is fair then.
Nice.
Do you want to get into the reason why you have this at where you had it, or do you want me to jump into why I think the Disneyland Paris?
I mean, like I'll just reiterate. I think before you even walk into the attraction, it's very scary. You see those doors opening up, people screaming. It the building looks like dilapidated in the sense that like it was like struck by lightning. There's like cracks in the front of it. It's very menacing, and like that. Like those are core memories for me when I first like feasted upon it with my own eyes as an 8-year-old. And then like when you like walk in, is the whole attraction is just building suspense. And then the experience itself is like one of the most thrilling Disney experiences, just like on its functionality as being a drop tower. Like it's just not something that you would ever think would be in a Disney attraction.
Quick little side question based off what you just said. And I think I'm going to know the answer for at least Dallin. Are you two team dilapidated or team pristine when it comes to something being scary? Because Walt obviously did not want a dilapidated haunted mansion in his park. He didn't want people to think his park was run down. Therefore, the haunted mansion looks pristine. Or do you think it's scarier when it's like the Tower of Terror and it's a lobby that has like cobwebs and shit all over it? What scares you more?
Honestly, if I had to answer, I'm going to go with Walt on this one. I think having a pristine outside the mansion at Disneyland is a great example of this. Even at Disney World, to an extent, they've let it get a little bit more dilapidated over the years. But then, like, just the juxtaposition of this beautiful mansion with a manicured lawn, beautiful plants, trees outside. You go inside, and then there's cobwebs, and it's dark, and it's dingy, and it's abandoned, essentially dilapidated. Yeah. I think that kind of adds to it, in my opinion.
I agree. Like when it comes to like psychological horror, I think that's the way you play it. As a kid, I think just the in-your-face dilapidated is more scary, but as you get older, it's creepier that it looks pristine at first, and then you start seeing signs. Fun
fact about the Disney World Haunted Mansion, the fact that it's getting more dilapidated, they're not even doing anything theming-wise. They're just doing what they do with all their rides over there. They're just...
It's
just letting it rot away.
They're just kind of letting it sit there, and, it's looking more and more dilapidated.
They're going to get some new neighbors soon, too.
Yeah. Oh.
Mater.
I could talk about that for hours.
That's the scariest thing.
That would be number one on Ryan's list if it was already here.
Is Mater's Junkyard Chamber?
It is. I guess it is.
Right next to the Haunted Mansion, man.
Where it belongs, as God intended.
I will say, Mater's little Halloween attire for like the spooky season at Disneyland is like really funny.
It's like vampire outfit.
He's got funny little fangs.
Yeah.
But back into it, Byron. I think pristine is always scary. There's that scene in the Titanic when the underwater camera's going through like the sunken boat, and then all of a sudden it transforms back into the pristine Titanic. It's supposed to be like a beautiful moment where you're like, oh, they're all in heaven. But I always saw that as so fucking like disturbing.
It's a little unsettling.
It's unsettling, right? It's like, oh shit, are they just trapped on this boat forever?
For eternity.
Is that hell? Like, because it doesn't look like, if you were to tell me like, hey, I know you died on this cruise ship, where do you want to spend the rest of your life? I don't think that cruise ship would be in my top 5.
On the cruise ship that you died on?
No, the time where I saw my daughter drown. I think I'm good.
Also, the Rose character goes back to the Titanic as a ghost after she dies. So we're just all the people who ever stepped foot on the Titanic.
That's
just
true.
Doomed to return to the bottom of the ocean.
That's true.
These are questions that only I can raise.
And I have no answers. But Byron, continue through why you believe this is a good pick. And I said that in a very condescending way. There was no sauce meant on that. I'm just curious why.
I don't know. It's advertised. It's everything about it. It's like a horror attraction. I don't know.
The theming is great.
Number one,
it's
for
meant
Disney,
to be scary,
absolutely not. But I think, and like worldwide, it has different iterations that take on different stories. Like you've mentioned the Paris version. I think I know, like they got scarier stuff during the actual ride itself.
Oh my God, the Paris version is horrifying. We're gonna get into a second.
So there's like reasons there. I think you might be experiencing the Disney Sea version soon. I'm not gonna give it away, but I think just Disney Sea it's not Twilight Zone. I would say that like spoil it for yourself before you go, just in the sense of knowing the backstory, because you're not going to be able to unless you pick up fluent Japanese in like within the next month.
Yeah,
you might want to know like the backstory.
Yeah,
before entering the building.
I've read the backstory on it. It looks fantastic. Without trying to expose myself to spoilers, because I never like watching POVs before I get on a ride. This is a tough situation because like at the core, the base package, like if you're buying a car, there's like the base model. They're all pretty similar, I suppose. The Tower of Terrors, and all of them have their fun little things. Like the Disney World one actually moves forward through the shaft. The Paris one has actually now 3 different storylines in each of the shafts. And then the one in California Adventure, when it was there, was kind of like the nuts and bolts version. I haven't been to the one in Disney Sea. I know it has a different storyline as well. But I do...
Scariest pre-show, too.
At Disney Sea.
Mm-hmm. It's the Paris version. Let's just get into it, because have you two been on the Paris version?
I have.
I have never been to Paris, unfortunately, but God. I have heard great, because it's essentially, I've heard, the bones of the California Adventure one that we used to have.
Yeah.
Except the ride itself is absolutely horrifying.
There are different sound bites, I think, during the actual ride that are creepy, but...
No. Okay, so let's just get into it here.
Absolutely.
You went on it more recently than I did.
I went on it very recently. I went on this with my wife when we went to Paris for our anniversary. And we both walked off of this being like, the French, man. These guys don't
dang French.
They don't give a fuck. It was crazy. The whole ride centers around the little girl, Sally, I believe is her name. There's actually 3 different stories. I did not know this at the time, but each shaft has like a different version of what's going on. Wow. One of them's the 5th dimension. That's kind of more similar to what we, have known and loved. Another one, I believe, is it's called the evil machine or the infernal machine or something like that. It's about an elevator that's like super possessed. And then the one that I unknowingly got onto, which I believe after watching I did watch the POV of the other 2. I broke my own rule, but I needed to for this podcast. I ended up getting on what I believe to be the scariest one, which is called the Shaft Creatures. I'm about to give away some of this ride, so if you don't want to hear this, maybe skip forward in like 2 minutes. Spoiler alert. Now, the storyline for this one is that the elevator is infested with these monsters that are essentially going to kill you. And Sally is acting as a guide to try and keep you safe, but she's kind of doing it in like a cheeky way. So the ride starts as you normally would. The shaft moves backwards. Sally starts to sing a song in French, which is then translated to basically "Rain, rain, go away." And then she says, "I wouldn't go in there if I were you." And she says it in like a little creepy girl voice. She's like, "I wouldn't go in there if I were you." And then you're like, "What are you talking about, Sally?" Then you blast upwards. And as you do that, you hear the laughter of these monsters. And the entire shaft, the lighting is red. So it's like you are like in hell, essentially. Much more intense than any of the other ride portions that I've been on in any of the other tower iterations. Elevator goes up to the 13th floor, goes down, the doors open, you see a mirror and the reflection of the guest. This is stuff you already have seen, but it's the things that Sally is saying to you that make it super scary. When she appears there, she says, "If you scream, it will only get worse." And then she repeats that again in French. After that, the elevator falls. And then from there, you're in the Starfield. And you know how the Starfield happens in the other towers, and then you see like all the the usher, the elevator man,
yeah, it's at the beginning.
Yeah, you see that portion, and they're all like, "Come with us!" in this hallway. You see the same thing here, except instead of seeing those 5 people, you see the Starfield. It turns into the interior of the hotel. You're looking down the hallway, and it's just a little girl, and she's just the only one there, and she's walking towards you.
Oh,
and it is horrifying. You could hear the footsteps. You could hear the monsters. Everything then becomes dark. And then she says, "They know you're here. Whatever you do, don't scream." And then it drops again. And this I haven't verified, but apparently there is a decibel calculator that the Imagineers installed in this shaft so that the louder you scream, the more intense the ride gets. We're going to have to verify that because I was...
Absolutely.
Because that is demented. It's absolutely demented.
That's insane, yeah.
Meanwhile, you're hearing crazy laughter the entirety of this ride. The lights are blue and red. And then once it finally gets down to the boiler room, you see her one more time, and she says, "The next time, be quiet." And then she starts giggling and vanishes off as the Twilight Zone theme happens. The experience of it all was as if you were getting tortured by this demonic little girl. And I just remember thinking, the fact that they were willing to tease you and taunt you like that is something I don't think you could get away with in a domestic Disney theme park. And I say this also after going on Phantom Manor there. The French sensibilities seem to be a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say mature, but they really go for it over there. And this ride really pushed the envelope for me, which is why it landed where it did for me. I think it was, where was it on my list?
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't recall that version.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like I said, the ride mechanics and everything I've heard is just exactly the California Adventure version. But having those 3 separate themes is really interesting.
Yeah, and
the monsters in the elevator shaft thing obviously brings to mind the Halloween overlay of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly,
you know about that Monsters After Dark. I don't know if it sounds like way scarier.
Oh yeah,
the way they pull it off in Paris.
As if it's in the way they do it in California. It's the goofy Guardians monsters.
Yeah.
Here it's like, you don't see them, you just hear them, and you.
It's the which makes it scarier because it's just in your imagination.
Exactly,
you don't know what these things.
It's
look
the
like.
Classic Hollywood movie horror trope. Right. Whatever the audience can imagine in their mind is far more scarier than what you could show them. And in this particular case, not only are you imagining it and hearing it, but you are getting narrated what they are doing by a little girl who is also creepy. Like, I don't even like her.
It's like a joke to her.
Yeah, like, and she's like, "I'm gonna keep you safe," and I'm like, "I want you to stay away from me." Actually,
yeah, no, please don't.
But please tell me where the monsters are, but just keep a distance. So when she starts walking towards you like Kylo Ren in Rise of the Resistance, it's highly upsetting. Anyways, let's move on to number 4. Unless you have anything.
Hold on, before we move on, I do want to talk one more time about Tower of Terror.
Yeah,
there is one. Would I call it an overlay that they did before the original California Adventure version closed down for Guardians? Do you remember the last checkout for the Tower of Terror that they did there for a while?
I do remember that, and I never got to experience it because I do remember them promoting it. What was that?
So essentially, they just turned everything off. It was just a completely silent ride. So it's the same track, but you would go back in complete darkness, go up, the doors would open, darkness, close, go up, silence, darkness, open, close. You didn't know when the drops were coming. You couldn't really anticipate the story beats based on audio cues and stuff like that. It was just completely dark, completely silent. So that could be a little bit more scary for some people, for sure.
I mean, I didn't even know that's what they did. I remember seeing, I vaguely remember them doing some sort of promo for that.
Yeah.
But man, I can't believe I never experienced that. That sounds insane. Which is really funny because they had to do no additional theming. They just
shut everything off. Yeah.
Turn the lights off.
We're going to save some power. How do we do that?
We actually had to demolish one of the generators for Guardians ahead of time, so we'll just play it off as a story beat.
I mean, they did it beautifully then, because that sounds incredible. I was going to say, I can't wait to watch the ride POV footage of that, and then I'm just...
You just close your eyes and watch regular Tower of Terror POV. Close your eyes.
Exactly. Just listen to screaming in the dark.
Exactly.
Which is just how I go to sleep every night. let's move on to the number 4. Number 5 was Tower of Terror. Moving on. The number 4 scariest Disney ride of all time, according to us, is the Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to toss to Dallin immediately here because
absolutely.
I'm going to ask him to explain himself because Dallin, you had this listed as number 2. Byron, you had this as number 5. I had it not on my list at all.
Oh, wow.
But Dallin, you had it at number 2, and this is how Dallin wrote it down. An empty haunted mansion.
Remember earlier, I was talking about under certain circumstances at certain points of the day, it can be spooky.
Now, what do you mean by that?
So if you've ever staying at a deluxe resort at Walt Disney World, get those extra evening hours, there's nobody in the park.
Oh,
it's completely empty.
Yeah.
Or you even go early in the morning sometimes, usually not, but early in the morning or right before park close. If you can get that little window between stretching rooms where it's just like you and your party, or just you sometimes. I've gotten to do it where it's literally just me in the mansion. 50 doom buggies empty that way, 50 doom buggies empty that way. It's a bit unnerving being in a completely empty haunted mansion, going through the changing portrait hallway and all of these different scenes completely by yourself. It gives you a different sort of vibe than going through with a bunch of people with their luminescent shirts and their phones. You know, it's definitely a bit spooky.
Oh, I could see that. Now, my challenge to you, though, is I'm just going to say why it was not on my list. This is one of those attractions where, like, it is set in Spooky Town. Like, it's like Disney's like, this is a spooky attraction. Right. But because of that, they've not gone super hard on it in terms of the spooky meter. They're like making it more, it's more like campy. It's like Halloween Town or like, Hocus Pocus or things of that ilk. Or it feels great because it's like, a campy horror environment, but at the same time, I don't find myself ever truly frightened in the Haunted Mansion. I find myself comfortable.
Do you find that we're just because we're so familiar with it though?
But even as
I was about to say,
even as a kid though, did this ride scare you guys as a kid?
It did.
The very first time I went on the Haunted Mansion, I think I was 5 or 6. I had my eyes closed and my ears plugged the whole time. I didn't want to know. And now that I'm grown, I know every story beat and it's just regular for me. But as a kid, you really kind of hype yourself up. You don't know what to expect in there. Because like back when we were kids, they didn't have like 4K POVs on YouTube, They didn't know what to expect.
Fire one of those bad boys up on your baby iPad on the way over there.
Exactly, yeah. Show it to your child.
Maybe there was something wrong with my brain then as a kid because I did not find myself scared in this. I loved this ride. It was like one of my favorites. I think it's because the ghosts were singing. I think it almost helped me. And maybe this is what Haunted Mansion is to a lot of people out there. It felt to me like a gateway, like a way for me to step into the horror genre and see that these things could be fun. Because you're in this spooky environment, but all the characters are doing goofy things. They're singing. There's a fucking opera singer. There's a mummy. If you remember that.
Right, yeah, no.
But that's all
don't
the
even
second
talk about
half,
that. He's my favorite.
Though.
The first
I was about to say, it's the first half.
It's like done in
that
earnest.
gets me as a kid. Yeah.
That's true.
Because you have the mystery of the unknown, like we were talking about with the Tower of Terror, with you're not seeing any of the ghosts, you're hearing them, you're catching glimpses of a hand trying to reach out of a coffin. You never really see these ghosts. So that can kind of add to it. Even as a kid, is the fear of the unknown makes it spookier. Yeah,
and I guess that now I'm starting to regret not putting this on my list. And
the hallways, that shadow hand that crosses over the clock, still creepy, I think, to me.
Yeah, especially when you look behind and you can see that it's just a cardboard cutout going like this. Super high budget and creepy.
And the two opposing viewpoints making this ride from the two Imagineers that worked on it. Yeah, there is arguments on where the transition happens. I think we talked about this last time you were on the pod when we actually just covered Haunted Mansion holistically and just as its own episode. We agreed that it was kind of in the ballroom scene where that transition happens.
Yeah. Or
actually, Dallin, could you give a quick primer on the two Imagineers and like where you?
Okay, yeah. So you got Marky and you got Claude. You got Mark Davis, who is famous for Marky Daves. You have him with his silly scenes. He did like the rhino poking the people on the Jungle Cruise pole. He's got a lot of pirates gags. He's a very visual storyteller. He likes funny rides. He does funny visual gags in these attractions. And then you had Claude Coates, who was an illusionist, and he was really sort of dead set on having the ride be genuinely like a house, like a haunted house, like you would find out how like Halloween Horror Nights or something, where even back when it was a walkthrough, that it would be scary for people, even grown-ups. Is meant to genuinely disturb and scare people. And at the end of the day, they both sort of got their way with the transition from Leota into the ballroom, going from like the sort of spookier, unseen horrors that, you know, are a bit more, I would even argue, a bit more mature than the graveyard and the ballroom scene where ghosts are just kind of having a fun, dandy time partying around with those visual gags that Mark Davis is so famous for.
No, wow, I'm really regretting now not putting this on my list because I did kind of disregard the coats of it all. The prevailing memory for me is, you know, the funny graveyard and all that stuff, you know, and we could talk about how some people think that you are getting thrown from the attic window and landing in the graveyard and now you're a ghost. Would have to be heavily inferred. But this ride, I don't know, it never scared me as a kid. And I think just because I knew it was a scary or supposed to be spooky kind of attraction going into it, there was maybe as a kid or in general, I just steeled my nerves and knew what I was expecting, and it never really scared me. Whereas like some of the other attractions that we're going to be talking about are ones that legitimately ambush you. And there's no reason for them to be the way they are. It's like almost uncalled for.
Because if we're talking about like childhood fear, because we talked about that with the Tower of Terror, yeah, this would definitely go on the list. And then the reason I specified an empty haunted mansion is because that's kind of the only way I can get genuinely kind of like, ooh, a little chill down my back on the mansion now that I'm grown and know exactly. I see animatronics now. I don't see ghosts, and it's still cool. It's still interesting, but Would you rather spend the night in the haunted mansion or alone or the Tower of Terror? Ooh, probably, Tower of Terror is themed after a hotel, but just
that's true. I guess
as a sheer mansion fan, I would have to choose the haunted mansion because I don't think I would sleep that night. I'd be too busy walking around checking stuff out.
Yeah, I forgot. I guess I would probably be doing the same thing. But like, if I was forced to sleep there, I'm like, hey, pack your bag. You're going to be living in one of these attractions for a week. I feel like haunted mansion would be pretty unnerving.
It like effects off even, I feel like that'd be creepier than even with effects on, if you ask me.
Feel free to blast me in the comments, everybody. I feel like I've made a mistake here. That's fine. Hey, look, I apologize.
A reverse muscle job.
It's a reverse muscle job.
That's weak sauce, Ryan.
You know what it is? I knew you guys were going to put this bad boy in there. And I had to fight for my little B-side attractions. Anything more on the Haunted Mansion?
No, I think it's really funny because I put it, 5?
You put it, Byron, you had it at number 5.
Yeah, and I was thinking like,
your list.
And I was thinking, oh, it's definitely going to get on the list though because Ryan's going to put it like high up there.
I knew Dallin for sure was going to ride. I had to put it up there, so I was like, okay,
absolutely, I can't not.
That's funny. Is there is some flaw in our test or in our system because we all know each other. So which is funny because Byron was like, I'm assuming Ryan's going to put it in there. And I was assuming that Dallin was going to ride for it, which Dallin came through.
Of course.
But now I'm regretting not riding for my mansion. I don't know. Maybe I'm circling back.
But you said it's not scary to you.
It's not scary to me. I could see, and I think because they are trying to make scary accessible, it's therefore not a scary ride. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make any sense. Feel free to scream at me in the comments. I'll take it.
I think we get the liberties to be a little less objective with these top 5s.
Fair enough. Let's move on to number 3. Actually, our top 3s. We're going to get into the top 3 scariest rides at Disney resorts of all time. But before we do that, let's thank our sponsors. And we are back. It's time to reveal the top 3. Number 3, and this is shocking that this is number 3, by the way. All right, here we go. Number 3 is Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter with a score of 6. This was number 2 on my list. This was number 4 on Dallin's and completely left off by Byron. Inexplicably, I would say. The fact that this does not crack your top 5 is bananas to me. I'd like you to defend yourself.
Look, I've never been in that. Well, I have been in that room, but it was Stitch's Great Escape. I don't know what it was like hearing the alien breathe on me or feel the blood. So all I have to go by is
You think you could have a pretty good idea?
The insane amount of screams that take place on these people.
It sounds like people are being murdered in this room. We just covered this with Defunctland. If you want to go check that episode out where we cover why in detail this is, in my opinion, could be considered the scariest ride of all time. I struggled between putting this 2 or 1. I ultimately had it at 2. I could switch that any given day. The fact that I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
I don't know. I haven't experienced it myself, but if I'm going to be completely objective, I think there's a reason why this ride or this attraction doesn't exist, and I probably should have had it on the list.
What do you think, Dallin? Because you had this at 4.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I put it at 4, not super high up on the list because going in. I guess the reason they shut it down is because people didn't know going in, but theme park fans know going in that this is supposed to be the scariest ride Disney has ever done. You're steeling yourself, you're bracing for it. And I mean, you're just kind of mentally prepared for it in a way that you're maybe not with a ride like, Tower of Terror, or I guess I will save some for later on the list. Because there are some rides that take you by surprise with how spooky they end up being. This one is like, you know what you're getting into. But it has an honorable mention because it's so legendary for being the scariest. It's so scary that they had to close it down.
I get what you're saying because I just mentioned this same argument for Haunted Mansion. You're steeling yourself for a scary experience because they tell you it's going to be a scary experience and then they make it accessible. So you could steel yourself for that. It's like if you steel yourself for getting a shot at the doctor. It's like, okay, it's not that bad, just a little pinch. Stealing yourself for this ride would be like me stealing myself for getting punched in the face by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It doesn't matter how much I steal myself; he's gonna knock my ass out.
But if you've noticed on my list, I put down Alien Encounter slash Stitch, because Stitch is the one where you don't know what, because it's Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. He's cute. That ride is scarier than it has the right to be.
I actually found that to be the case. I got on Stitch and was sneak attacked by it. I had no idea of the history when I first got on this ride that it was, its previous incarnation was a terror factory. And when I got on that, I was like, Jesus, this is actually pretty scary. And it didn't even cross my mind, like, what if Stitch was actually like a scary alien? And the fact that exists, that is this ride, is crazy to me. And they had warnings all plastered all over this attraction that, this may be too much for children. People took their kids on anyway. It didn't matter.
I think if they brought it back in Stitch's Great Escape as it was, I think it would actually be
it's still there.
Probably a success. Yeah, it's a storage room now. I think people would love it. People hated it when it was open. I think if they brought it back, that would be a nice people eater and people would actually enjoy it. I think it'd have a cult following for sure.
At one point, there was a Reddit thread that said I don't know if you know this, Dallin, but the water that they squirted on you was not only warm, but at one point, it was also sticky.
Well, how do they do that?
I don't know, but I saw multiple people corroborate this, saying that the water was sticky to simulate human blood.
Love that. It's Michael Eisner at his best, at his peak, if you think about it.
It's fucking absurd, dude. After that, the alien starts just jumping around the arena trying to find a new victim. At some point he lands on your shoulders, which is the shoulder restraints make it feel like there's an alien standing on top of you. You feel its hot breath and drool on your neck. And then eventually they get this guy back in the tube. But all said, it's a horror show. They turn the lights off. They make you imagine everything. You hear a guy get murdered. And then you literally have, at one point, I think there's they have pre-recorded guests. Guests that are screaming. They in addition to all the people that are actually screaming, they have actors, and one of them is saying, "Don't eat me, eat him, or eat you." Essentially,
yeah,
it's horrific. It's all a very unpleasant setup.
And all to think that this ride replaced Mission to Mars, right? Or just a nice little quaint, sit down, enjoy your vibrating room, and then get back on into Tomorrowland. Then you go to being splattered with blood.
Breck wasn't having Mission to Mars.
I guess not.
Breck Eisner, for those who don't know, the teenage son of Michael Eisner, who described Disneyland Resort as boring. And Mike Eisner was like, I can't have that. We got to make this place thrilling. And so he was like, let's traumatize a generation.
Give us Alien Encounter. Give us Splash Mountain. That's all Breck, man.
Honestly, legend. Breck is a legend.
Yeah. Star Tours.
That was, yeah.
Hashtag bring Breck back.
Let's get Breck in charge.
Triple B, dude. We got to get Triple B back in action. I also read a story about, and we mentioned this on the extraterrestrial pod, where it was from a newspaper article where they had interviewed this family and they had said that their son was so scared, or their nephew was so scared by this ride, that he even refused to accept any toys or merchandise from the gift shop.
Fair. No, that's fair. Bringing your 5-year-old child, 10-year-old, even 10-year-old child on this ride, I would also refuse.
I mean, you know how hard it is to get any sort of kid to refuse a toy?
He just wanted to leave. He wanted out of there.
He was like, I don't want to see this guy another day in my entire life.
Right. And then it was originally supposed to be like the xenomorph alien from Alien also. Yeah, before the rights fell through. They could do it now if they wanted.
If Eisner had his way, it would have been. Apparently,
yeah, which I think would have made it even scarier, personally.
I mean, I'm glad that it was an original creature, but the xenomorph is a historically and just horrifying thing to look at. It's just not a pleasant thing to look at. And
just the animatronics that have always just been in that ride, the Stitch animatronic, the bug alien animatronic, they're insane. Just imagine like a huge
xenomorph,
12-foot tall xenomorph. That would be incredible.
I mean, not 12 feet, but they kind of did it in Great Movie Ride, right?
They did.
They had like the head popping through the top.
So you got a little preview.
Haunted Mansion tombstone ghost sort of pop out action.
But imagining like if the glass breaks and because you do see the creature for a little bit in this ride breaking the glass. If you were to see the xenomorph crane his head over the audience and have the separate little head come out of his mouth right in front of your face. It would be
terrifying and amazing at the same time to witness.
It'd be terrifying. I can't even imagine. Cool. I don't know. This is one of those rides that like, I think it's the only ride in Disney history that they flexed their creative muscles as hard as they could to make something as scary as they could within bounds.
And it's not IP, which is also a plus.
And it's not IP. Awesome. Because people have always wondered, what if Disney did something like Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm, or they truly leaned into horror and they used all the might of Walt Disney Imagineering? What would it look like?
I feel like they kind of did that in Tokyo at some point. I've never experienced that, but I do believe they did do like Halloween events. It was either
I think it was Tokyo or Hong Kong or Paris. Yeah, it was. They had houses like Pinocchio. There was a Pinocchio one I know, an Alice in Wonderland one. So, and now they do Villains Grove, which is kind of cool at California Adventure for Oogie Boogie. It's supposed to be their walk-through horror attraction.
Well, there is also a horror walk-through attraction for cast members only. I forget what it's called, but it's like they put on basically a scare event, but obviously you can't go onto it unless you're a cast member. There's videos of it online. It looks...
I know they used to do it at Indiana Jones.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. I think this year they had it at Redwood.
Okay.
Or last year they had it at Redwood. So I don't know. I'm never going to be able to see that because I'm not a cast member, but I would love to see if Disney really went for it again like they did with this ride.
They absolutely should.
Which is why it is, I guess, just number 3 on our list.
Number 3, yeah. The scariest ride Disney has ever built. That's why it's number 3.
You can't be scary when you're dead.
Unbelievable. It's only number 3 because somebody left it off their list.
Whatever.
You
didn't put it number 1.
You reverse muscle jobbed it. You reverse muscle jobbed it. Let's move on to number 2. I mean, I don't think this is going to surprise anybody. I was surprised that it was higher than extraterrestrial, but this had to be in the top 3. Number 2, we got Dinosaur. A classic.
Mm-hmm.
Take it away, fellas. Why is this
soon to be leaving us? Byron, you want to lead us?
I think I put this as number 1.
Let me see. Byron has it at number 1. Dallin has it at number 5. And I have it at number 4. Fun fact, the only attraction to make it on all 3 of our lists. Somehow.
And one of the only attractions still standing that has the "this ride will scare your children, be careful" disclaimer on it also.
Is that the wording?
It's just, basically, essentially. It's like dark places, loud noises, and scary dinosaurs. This kind of thing.
Nobody pays attention to those warnings, though. No. I feel like Disney would have to do something drastic to really make like a parent like have their eyes kind of just dart over to the sign. Like if they're like, "Hey, dipshit, if your kid is under 10, don't take your kid on this ride." Then they'd be like, "Hey, you can't call me that." And then they would see the warning and go, "Fair." Fair.
I mean, yeah, it is a scary ride.
It's terrifying, truly terrifying.
And since we are counting defunct attractions, I think that validates my choice even more so, because when it originally opened, it was Countdown to Extinction, which was supposedly
brought to you by McDonald's.
Brought to you by McDonald's. And that was like kind of the point I'm getting to, is there's nothing about like the exterior of this ride, walking into the Dino Institute,
the queue even,
meeting Dr. Seeker, like nothing about this says, oh, we're going to like make you shit your pants.
Right.
It only until like the ride starts, and then it is relentless.
Dr. Seeker, by the way, a bastard. That guy should be in prison forever.
That guy needs to be put in another ride if we're going to get rid of this one.
Dude, I can't believe the things this guy gets away with in this ride. We talked about it in the ep. We covered.
He's a menace.
He's a menace. He hijacks a tour and uses it for his own seemingly personal gain to bring back dino research, and puts us in the middle. Like, I don't know why he thought it was a good idea.
We're pawns in his game.
He puts us in 10 minutes within an asteroid crash. He could have done it anytime. He's a time machine.
He'll be fine. We need this specific dinosaur from this specific movie that nobody watched.
That's true. That is true. Countdown to Extinction is supposed to be much scarier, by the way. It's a version of this ride without the dinosaur movie theming. Mm-hmm. Similar premise, except...
What, did it not have the dinosaur theming? I thought it did.
No, like,
it didn't have the iguanodon. The whole iguanodon subplot is not in there.
Yeah.
You're just going back to give us like a triceratops or some random dinosaur.
Some random dinosaur, and apparently the asteroid impact in that ride was something to behold. And also the sound effects for that version literally had to be toned down for the new dinosaur. So the dinosaur ride that we have now is technically a toned down version. And if that's the toned down version, I can't even fucking imagine how scary Countdown to Extinction was.
I think the thing that gets me about Dinosaur, why it's so scary, is like you said, there's like, oh, Bill Nye's telling you about the Cretaceous period in the queue. How cool. Oh, look at all these little dinosaur specimens. Oh, this silly guy's got a dinosaur hand puppet. He's making jokes. You get on the ride. There are periods of that ride where you are in complete darkness, just going. You don't know where you are. You can feel yourself moving, and it's quiet. I think the darkness and the quiet makes this more scary. And then obviously they'll jump scare you with Carnotauruses 3 or 4 times. It gets you off. It catches you off guard so many times.
And then for those with anxiety, they really just bring it home with like from the very start, you will have to meet a deadline in addition to escaping the dinosaurs.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, normally though the deadline is something simple and innocuous. Like I want, pictures of Spider-Man on my desk by 12 p.m. Not like, hey, if you don't get this dinosaur,
it's a big ask.
You are going to get crushed by an asteroid.
Oh yeah, because the original version had like an asteroid effect that came down upon you.
And apparently it was great. It's hard to tell in the POV videos. I've tried to it kind of
looks pretty sick though.
I imagine it must have been awesome. And the thing about this ride, the premise is you're trying to find a dinosaur. You get sent back in a time machine that's hijacked by this guy named Dr. Seeker. You have to bring this dinosaur back. For some reason, he makes it like he says it's very important. Doesn't he say it's like he's like the key to understanding our genome or some bullshit like
something
that?
Like that. He's like it's the missing link.
Yeah, exactly. This iguanodon, funny guy, helps us with a log at the end of the ride. But that's the premise. And for some reason, you are sent back at a time when you are 10 minutes away from the extinction level event of all the dinosaurs in which an asteroid hits the Earth. So you have about 10 minutes to do it. So there's a ticking clock mechanism already set up from the beginning, and it's incredibly dark. Like, not just like thematically, like literally you could barely see anything in this ride.
It is dark.
And the dinosaurs are all like underlit by this kind of like neon lighting. Like the Carnotaurus, when it walks out, you could see it's like purple veins throbbing through its skin.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, they're lit in such a way that in a weird way, you kind of don't notice them until they're like right up on you.
Exactly. Kind of it makes them somewhat sneaky.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, this is the sneakiest giant Tyrannosaurus Rex-like creature we've ever seen.
Right.
There's a part where it walks out of the bushes. It simulates a walk. And
it's the second time you see it, I think.
It's horrifying. Like, as a kid, I'm also scared of giant animatronics, and this animatronic is terrifying. You see this guy.
And it's close. It's close to you, too.
Extremely close.
That reminds me, because like there's something to be said about the same creature like that continues to pop up and stalk you.
Yes. It's a boogeyman.
They do it with the Jaws ride. They kind of do it with Jurassic World.
Yes. All of these top 3 and I guess most of the items on this list are perfect examples of when Disney does the great storyline of you are in peril, you're on some sort of like tour, and it goes wrong, and you are in bad shape now. Also, another thing about the appearance of the Carnosaurus, right? Or the
Carnotaurus.
Carnotaurus. I made up the made up appearance of it because they changed the actual look of it for this ride.
Yeah.
Its eyeballs are these like glowing, like
the
orange eyeballs, and it's so dark in the ride.
It's crazy.
It's fucking terrifying.
Honestly, weirdly enough, though, the one that's supposed to be the jump scare with the ride photo, as the asteroid's hitting, that one doesn't scare me as much.
No, me either.
Because you kind of know it's there, and it's like, oh, there's a big Carnotaurus picture. Move on with your life. It's that one where you're talking about where he runs up beside the Jeep, really quickly, really close. That's the one that gets me every time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that last one looks like it's just like on a stick getting pushed out toward you. Like it's essentially the same moment because this is like essentially like a clone of the Indiana Jones layout. So it's that moment where in Indiana Jones, you go under the boulder for Dinosaur. It's the Carnotaurus the final time.
Carnotaurus on a stick, yeah.
Which
Carnotaurus on a stick.
And I got it, like, in regards to Indiana Jones, I think it's funny that they clearly were balling on a little more of a budget for this one. So it's a clone of the layout, but they just made things darker to hide a bunch of stuff essentially, or not do as much with the project. But it really worked in its favor because, like, as you guys have mentioned, like the imagination could do a lot to do wonders for.
It made it one of the scariest rides of all time. And one of the things that also makes it super scary for me is it's the great storytelling of centering it around the point of view of a character that you meet in the pre-show, which is Dr. Seeker.
Welcome to our little trans-dimensional joyride, folks. I'm Dr. Seeker, your friendly controller, and a heck of a paleontologist, if I do say so myself.
He comes off as this very confident, not rattled guy. Like, he's so sure of himself when he's explaining to you what's happening, to the point where he's like, you're literally watching him disobey his boss. And you're like, this guy is going to keep me safe no matter what.
Right. Yeah, no, I trust him.
I trust this guy. And then throughout the ride, he starts to panic. Like when you first see, like, I think the Carnotaurus, he says something along the lines of like, definitely not our dino. And you're like, oh shit, I guess I'm in danger now.
Identify. Carnotaurus. Definitely not our dino. Go, go, go.
Right.
And at one point when he starts panicking, literally says, screw the mission, get them out of there.
That's it. Abort mission. Abort, abort.
That's scary.
Right.
Especially for a kid, because you're like, wait a second, this guy I thought was going to keep me safe. He has a lab coat on.
Now he's not sure what's going to happen.
And
I mean, you don't want to hear on the other side of a telephone line, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it.
They're not going to make it.
That's true.
They're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. Mission accomplished.
Like if you were like a police dispatcher and you were like trying to talk somebody through a traumatic event, like if someone's trying to break into your home and you hear them go, these fuckers are dead. There's no
it's
way.
over. Yeah, don't worry about it.
No way they're making it. They're getting stabbed for sure. It's a scary setup.
Which makes me finally realize if he's saying they're not going to make it, because it would be super weird if he's like, you're not going to make it. You're not going to. But who's he talking to? Who is he with?
He's talking to the computer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's I guess has a mind of its own. It's
because the computer, guides us through the thing and identifies the dinosaurs.
He's got some sort of like Joaquin Phoenix and Her situation going on.
It's his girlfriend for sure.
Anyways, Dallin, what was your first experience on this ride? Do you recall?
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting because it was picture perfect what we're talking about, being a young kid not expecting, oh, dinosaur, oh, this queue is Bill Nye talking to us, oh, it looks like a fun museum ride, oh, I've been on Indiana Jones before, that ride is fun. And then you get on it, and I got off that ride, I must have been like 6 or 7. This wasn't my first trip to Animal Kingdom, but I worked up the courage to do it. I got off and I said, I'm never doing this ride again. That was the most traumatic experience of my entire life. And this was also because back in the day, there's a lot, just like Indiana Jones, these kind of rides are cursed, I guess. There were effects that, obviously we're talking about the asteroid impact, that aren't active today. So it was a scarier version of what we have now. So,
were you a dinosaur kid too? Like just dinosaurs in general?
I was a Spider-Man and Toy Story kid, but I had a passing interest in dinosaurs. So I wasn't like super hyped to see dinosaurs. I was curious to see what they would look like, though. And boy, howdy, did I find out.
I'm extremely weird. It's a weird thing to say, but I'm jealous that you got to experience this as a kid.
Yeah.
Because I experienced this for the first time I think I was 16 years old. And because that was the first time I went to Disney World. And man, if I could have experienced this like sub 10 years old, holy moly.
It changes a man. It changes a child, man. You walk out of that ride and you're unsure if you want to go on any more rides the rest of the day because you feel like you'll be misled. That's how I felt, at least. I feel like I was misled by Dinosaur. And so I was like nervous, like, is this Kilimanjaro ride going to be scary? And back then, obviously it was. You saw a dead mom elephant. So, I mean, I guess
that's true. Did that foster a distrust in your parents or Disney parks?
A huge distrust in specifically Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, that's true. That park it's wild.
Yeah.
And I feel like just it would have intrinsically changed my DNA in like a cellular level.
Yeah. You don't.
I'm jealous. I'm truly jealous because Byron, you got to experience this somewhat young too, right? Or no?
No, this is like, I think I mentioned this in the Dinosaur episode. One of the great regrets of my life. I went when I was 8 years old. Animal Kingdom was just like a year or two old. It was like the year 2000. And
that's right, because you missed Alien Encounter too.
Since Animal Kingdom was a new a relatively new park, and B, there weren't many rides at Animal Kingdom. I mean, there still really aren't, but the line was super duper long for what was at the time called Countdown to Extinction. So we were like, oh, let's go to the other park. We're done here with Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
Little did I know, 8-year-old Byron was missing out on
you were so close.
Something So I eventually went on it when I was about like 16 or 17 as well.
Damn.
So, and then yes, extraterrestrial alien encounter. I also had an opportunity to ride or to experience when I was 8 years old, but I wasn't into horror stuff. I saw on the park map a photo of the guys like looking up at the ominous alien and screaming. I was like, I am definitely not doing that shit. And honestly, I would have hated that.
Yeah.
And just to think, if Genie Plus was around back then, you could have had my Genie Day.
Absolutely would have spent money on a lightning lane for that one.
My Genie would have been like, here's what you should do. You should go on Dinosaur, and then you should park hop over to Magic Kingdom and get on Extraterrestrial. It's a good way to double dose.
Yeah, Disney Day.
No, this was the beginning of the paper fast pass era, because they first, I believe, implemented it at Animal Kingdom, I think, to test it out.
I think so.
It'd be so cool to have like a paper fast pass of Extraterrestrial just to see that like logo. I mean, awesome.
Yeah, fetch a pretty penny on eBay, but yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out for one of those.
Oh, and real quick before we wrap up here on Dinosaur, what would you guys take? Countdown Extinction, or would you take Countdown to Extinction as the title, or Dinosaur? What would you prefer?
You know, as much as I think that Countdown to Extinction was a superior version of Dinosaur, I do think that Dinosaur is a better name for the ride. It gets, you know what you're getting into. The ride's called Dinosaur. What do you want?
I mean, I would actually make that argument more so for Countdown to Extinction, because that is literally telling you what's happening in the ride.
It's literally a Countdown to Extinction, yeah.
So what if they called it Dinosaur : Countdown to Extinction? That would probably be the best.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst name Disney's come up with for a ride.
No, it certainly wouldn't be.
I do think it's funny that Dinosaur is all caps.
Yeah, they're yelling it at you.
Dinosaur. You read it like Mr. DNA.
Right.
Dinosaur. Let's move on to the number one scariest ride of all time at Disney parks.
I feel like I know what this is going to be.
It's time to reveal the scariest Disney ride of all time. And that is, of course, no surprise here. With a score of 10 points, we have Snow White's Scary Adventures, specifically pre-December 16th, 1994, before they nerfed it. Heavily
nerfed. Even after then, though, one could make an argument, but yeah.
No, but before that, a true nightmare show. Absolutely. Here's the thing. Let's just go and see where this landed on people's lists. 10, obviously 2 people ranked it number 1, which means somebody didn't put it on their list at all.
Who could that be?
I had it number 1. Dallin had it number 1. Byron had it number 0.
Look, I don't think I had the memo yet on defunct attractions, and I was thinking too much of Snow White.
Don't you try and wiggle out of this, because Byron sent me a list. I didn't look at his list. I didn't. I promise you I didn't. And I said to him, hey, and Dallin could attest to this, because I did it to Dallin too. Because I didn't specify when I first gave the list, you can include defunct attractions.
I didn't proofread my work.
And I said that to both of them without looking at their lists. And Dallin changed his list. He's like, here's a revised list.
Right.
Byron said to me, my list, here's the quote.
I said the list stands.
The list stands, period.
He doubled down.
He texted like a dad.
The list stands. No, I said a list stands LOL.
I don't know
the list stands LOL.
I think it was the list stands, period. He texted me like my dad, because my dad does all periods, which feels like so imposing.
Hey, man, when Byron swings, he doesn't miss. You know,
he did. Right. My list stands, LOL.
Yeah, that was a misfire on my part. I probably should have better proofread that list after Defunct Attractions went in. I did want to include it as an honorable mention.
You won't need to.
No, this is this is a fair number one, especially especially the Magic Kingdom version.
Yeah.
That came out like in the 70s.
We could quickly run through what this ride is like as well, and then we could jump into some commentary of our own here about why we have this on there.
Yeah.
Or would you guys, I think it might make more sense, because some people don't know this ride, what it was truly like. They just think, oh, Snow White, like it is at Disneyland right now. It is not.
No.
It is not Snow White's Enchanted Wish by any stretch of the imagination. They're basically different rides. And this has gone through several iterations of nerfing. They nerfed it once. They realized it wasn't enough nerf. Then they nerfed it again, and now it is, palatable for children.
Yeah, they got the 2.0 patch, not just a nerf. They did the whole update there for Enchanted Wish.
Yeah. They brought out the sewing kit. They really patched the shit out of this bad boy. First off, the ride is through Snow White's point of view. Most people were very confused when they got on this ride at the Magic Kingdom. And I'm talking specifically about the Magic Kingdom version, because that was apparently the scariest. It's the one that actually has a ride POV video of it, of somebody, whoever they are, bless their heart. They recorded a ride POV of this video with the camera light on. So it has a Blair Witch type vibe to it. I've seen it without the camera light on, still very scary, but the camera light on, I highly recommend you watch that if you are listening to this. And if you're watching the video version of this, we're going to be having B-roll clips of this up as I talk about it. But most people were confused. You don't see Snow White the entire ride, and that's because you are supposed to be Snow White, much like a lot of, honestly, the Fantasyland Pretzel Dark rides. No music. Also noteworthy, because there's a lot of sound effects in this ride, and they're all horrifying.
Yeah.
You got your witch cackles, you got your people begging for mercy. It's really dark. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, literally and figuratively dark.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also photorealistic looking witches in this ride that they look more real than their animated counterparts. Let's just say that. And you see the witch a lot in this ride. You enter the castle. You see the evil queen staring into the mirror. This is the beginning of the ride.
Is this Magic Kingdom?
Magic Kingdom.
There's a little outdoor portion where you go past the queen peering out the window like you have her at Disneyland still. So
Yeah. And I think there is a little bit of like singing, like Snow White singing out there. So you're like, oh, wonderful.
Oh, okay, cute. Yeah, cute ride.
But they even set it up in that opening scene because the queen, as Dallin pointed out, is spying on you. And they're basically setting up the concept that you're not sneaking into this castle. She knows you're coming.
Right.
And then you go inside the castle, you go in the castle doors, you see the queen, she's staring into the mirror, as the queen does, saying mirror, mirror on the wall. But then that figure abruptly and jerkily rotates to reveal an absolutely horrifying witch figure that legitimately screams at you at the top of her lungs. I'm the fairest one of all! And it's the scariest looking like figure. It's not an animatronic. It's just a
figure,
a witch figurine, a giant realistic looking witch that is unlike a lazy Susan essentially. So it's just like rotating very fast.
Yeah, and you can kind of envision it because it's similar to what we have still in Enchanted Wish, because she still does that effect where she turns around. But this is like that, but like uncanny and scary.
It's like the county fair version.
Exactly.
Of that,
yes. Low budget.
Which makes it
way
scary. It's horrifying. Then after that, you go through a dark ass dungeon full of shackled skeletons, also known as, dead people. These skeletons warn you to turn around, which of course you cannot. Meanwhile, you can hear the witch's cackles echoing through this dingy dungeon. Then you see the witch again. She's making poison apples for you in a bubbling cauldron. Of course, you hit the shelves along the way out, which makes said bubbling concoctions fall all over you, or at least it's implied.
And I believe she says something to the tune of, "Apple, dear."
And then you escape the castle. You're out. You escaped.
You've done it.
Yay. Nay, friend. Nay. Because now you're in the dark forest, and on your way out, you run into the witch speed rowing a canoe like the Winklevoss twins
what's
from
up with
Social
that?
Network. And she's like in this canoe, and she's like,
going. Yeah, good for her.
and you're just like, whoa! And she comes fast out of nowhere, like she's on crew. She's rowing crew out there in the dark forest, and she's also next to, of course, 2 horrifying little alligators. It is Florida after all. Then you run into the dark forest, which is full of sentient, nightmarish trees that sound like they're groaning at you. And apparently, they were capable of rotating and lunging at you.
Yeah, they would reach out. Yeah.
Because why not, right? If any of you have seen that horrifying Haunted Mansion sing-along promo where the trees are dancing, these trees look somewhat similar to those trees, except they're scarier and their eyes are like orange and red, and it's horrifying. The POV footage of this portion has huge Blair Witch vibes.
I mean, the scene in the film is scary enough in itself to like actually live it.
Right.
And then you actually do enter the dwarf's cottage, which you're like, oh, some folks I know. Maybe this will be nice and safe. You know, they'll do a little dance. They'll sing a little song.
No, they look like they're shitting their pants.
The cottage is inexplicably dimly lit for no reason. Like it's like a scene out of like Midsummer or something like that. You see these motionless, creepy animals and clocks. They all have haunting eyes, and they're all just staring at you. Mm-hmm. They're looking at you as if to say, "Why are you here?"
And like all the animals that are in the movie that are cute, helping her clean up the room while they're whistling while they work, they're also in that scene horrified. They're like
they look horrified, petrified even. And the dwarfs are there, by the way. But they're on a staircase investigating what appears to be a shadow, or some say it's like they're hunting a ghost of some sort. And they all look like they're scared for their lives, because they should be, because right after you see them on the staircase, the witch jump scares you as you leave the cottage one more time. Because why not? Then from there, you're back in the forest. There's vultures above you. The witch pops out again. This time from behind a tree, whilst cackling like she's going to, fucking kill you, because she's trying to kill you. She has a poison apple in her hand. Then from there you head into the diamond mines. You go through a wood structure that looks like the basement scene from The Conjuring. And once you're in the mine, the witch then tips over a support beam to try and crush you to death while screaming, "Enjoy your ride!" When that doesn't work, she then tries to crush you by attempting to push a minecart into the side of you. After that, you escape. Psych! She tries to crush you again, this time from above, as she yells, "Goodbye, dearie!" and tips a ginormous Snow White crushing jewel on top of your head, and this time, she succeeds, as the next thing you see is a cartoon strobe light, and you hear an echoey witch cackle, basically suggesting that the witch has killed you. Exit to Fantasyland. Enjoy your churros.
This is the alternate version of the movie, I guess, where Snow White gets crushed to death by a giant jewel.
Yeah, no.
A giant, comically large jewel.
The old hag is a little more persistent in this version in the film.
You want to talk about a boogeyman? You see this witch, I think 6 or 7 times.
Like I was kind of like mentioning earlier how like it's sometimes really scary when like the main villain or creature is like constantly stalking you.
It's got that Michael Myers effect too, when you're running away from Mike and it's like there's no way this fucking guy's gonna catch me, and somehow he's just waiting for you at the next place. He's always there. You could also hear the witch laughing for a majority of the ride. In either direct fashion as she's laughing at your face as she's trying to kill you, or in the distance, knowing just no matter where you are, she's somewhere.
It's inescapable.
It's inescapable. It truly feels like a nightmare. I have no idea why this ride ever existed. Here's a quote from the Orlando Sentinel's writer Leslie Doolittle from April 25th, 1994. The headline of this is "Disney Ride to Get Royal Makeover." And Leslie describes this terrifying journey brilliantly. This is a direct quote. I'm not ad-libbing. Snow White is never seen because the ride is designed to make guests feel as though they are Snow White, experiencing the terrors that befall her in the movie, rushing through the dark forest, seeing the evil queen transform into a wicked old woman, being beckoned to eat a poisoned apple. Not only does this Snow White ride not have a Snow White, there's no sign of a prince, and the only time the movie's lovable dwarfs are seen, they are scared out of their 7 little minds.
It's so true. Also, because like we're talking about, build up, what the queue expects, what you expect from the queue. You're a child, you're a little girl. You wanted to go see Snow White. It's the Snow White ride. Let's go see what Snow White's up to. And you are, my friend, are in for a trip if you're expecting this just a nice little princess ride with Snow White.
I struggle between number 1 and number 2. And the reason why I ultimately put Snow White number 1 is because of its cruelty. And the reason, I'll explain myself. The extraterrestrial gives you multiple warnings. This is a very scary attraction. Do not take kids on this, essentially. Whereas this is a kids' property located in Fantasyland, and I feel like this was an ambush. I feel like most kids got on this and were traumatized, and they were given no fair warning. And
that's why they changed the title to Snow White's Scary Adventures.
Correct. That's still not enough.
Nope.
It's not enough. It's not enough. It's in Fantasyland. It needs to have a more in-your-face kind of warning. It needs to have some like mission space level warnings.
Right.
The equivalent of like mental trauma to physical trauma. Because I just feel like this is the cruelest ride ever made. And that's what ultimately made it number 1 for me.
It's Claude Coates' magnum opus.
That's what, yeah, because it's like if extraterrestrial alien encounter was done by Walt's original Imagineers, but mean-spirited. Like they're trying to trick the kids.
Like truly mean-spirited, and I love that, by the way.
Yeah, me too. It's awesome.
Because if I'm being honest, I do think extraterrestrial is a scarier experience. I mean, you could argue about that. That's how crazy scary this ride is. The fact you could even argue that. I truly believe it is scarier. However, given the context that this is a kid's ride, not supposed to be this scary, and for some reason is, I think that gives it the edge. So, we could debate that, but that's number 1, Snow White's Scary Adventures, a true banger, a nightmarish ride that feels like an acid trip. I highly, highly recommend you watch the ride POV of it.
Do it.
It's worth it.
Yes, because, it's like a few years ago they updated, the Magic Kingdom one's been gone for a while.
Yes.
I think that space got basically turned into what? Character meet and greet?
It's Princess Fairy Tale Hall now. Yeah, it's meet and greets.
And that was the scariest version. The Disneyland version still scary until a few years ago, and now it's Snow White's Enchanted Wish. You do get Snow White in there more prominently.
And you get tastes. You get like faint glimpses of the old scary version of the ride in Enchanted
I think
Wish.
you still get like the witch like stationary with the pot. I think she still does the preliminary spin around.
Yes.
The dungeon and the apple scene are still there, but they're toned down. They're made less insane.
Yeah. As my mom said, because she wrote it for the first time in many years, back on her birthday in June. She got off the ride. She's like, it's so sanitized now.
Yeah, I get it.
She was not happy.
Yeah, and I understand why they did it. I think it's honestly probably a good thing that they did it, but I'll still miss the old scarier version for sure.
I almost wish they would have just taken the ride out altogether and started from scratch. It's kind of like watching a rated R film on like TNT. When they have all the curse words, like, when someone says bastard, it's like a banana or something, shit like that.
Yeah, it's like a weird cutaway. Yeah,
I don't like that.
It's sanitized.
The best one I remember was The Departed, when it was a close up of Mark Wahlberg and he goes, "You're no fucking cop," and it's just like, "You're no freaking cop,"
because they're not getting Marky Mark to get back in there. They had to like Frankenstein edit him saying frickin' from some film
somewhere else. Yeah.
Last takeaways before we move to honorable mentions. Dinosaur is the only one that was on all 3 of our lists somehow. Dallin and I both had Snow White number 1. Byron omitted it completely.
That was a mistake. This is one of my finest days.
Me either. And I surprisingly had no Haunted Mansion on my list. Those are the 3 takeaways I had that were surprising to me and would be probably surprising to.
But I still think ultimately this list shaked up to be okay.
I think so.
I think it's a solid list. Absolutely.
I stand by it. I think there's one omission on it that I will talk about in my honorable mention. And let's get to honorable mentions. These are the rides from each of us that were on our own personal lists that did not make it onto the aggregate official list that we want to talk about. Let's start with you, Dallin.
Oh man, so mine has a little bit of explaining. Superstar Limo
this is number
was
3
on my
for you.
list. And yeah, number 3, because like, I don't know, man, it's not meant to be scary. It's like a small world. It's a case of Small World
Uncanny.
where it's like, it's uncanny. The real celebrities and the puppet talking to you at the beginning through the speaker.
Swifty here, babe. Welcome to Hollywood.
And I just don't like how uncanny these figures look, how realistic, fake, and I don't know, scary at the same time. It's like they're cute, but they're also horrifying, and they're also very realistic while also looking like they're made out of plastic. It's so uncanny, like the Tim Allen, the Drew Carey, all of them, the Cher, the Antonio Banderas. It's all scary. It's just unnerving to me. Like, I'm not actively scared while riding the ride, but I'm just like, ugh.
I totally get it. They give you something in this ride that nobody on Earth ever asked for. You know, when you see like at a fair or even on Main Street when they're like, oh, come sit down for a caricature. No one is ever thinking, you know what I wish? These caricatures walked off this page and started getting in funny poses and chasing me in a limo.
They need to be real. Yeah. And then it's just, and the fact that was advertised as like the premier attraction for California Adventure when it first opened. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, that shows how much of a misfire it actually was.
Right.
I get this pick. I think it's definitely, you know, I actually made a top 10 list out of just fun. And I actually think this probably would make the 10. It didn't. I would replace it with something else because it is eerie. I think I'm just so distracted by the fact that it's such a bad ride.
It's horrible. It's awful. And I think that kind of makes it worse.
Oh, because it's like, I'm not even being entertained.
What? Yeah, why am I even here? I'm just being grossed out by these absurd-looking celebrity caricatures. Now I have wasted 30 minutes in line.
I think it's actually scarier knowing that the figures are still there and they just have the CDC Monsters Inc. costumes over them.
Yeah, they stripped them of their skin and put some yellow jumpsuits on them.
They should have done something similar to what you said for Tower of Terror for Superstar Limo. Superstar Limo,
imagine? Last
call for the night, and instead all the robots just have their skin ripped off, and it's just robots.
Yeah, it's just all animatronics, and it's quiet and dark.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, fucking lean into it. I get on that
absolutely.
ride. And you actually had the pleasure, or displeasure rather, of getting on this ride in person, or no?
I never got to ride it, though. No, unfortunately.
I actually did get to ride it, and
oh wow,
it's a bad ride. I mean,
yeah, it's just a bad. Yeah, I think that's the worst part of it is that it's not a good ride.
No, it's horrible. Oh no, in almost every sense of the word. Bad story, bad execution, and the figures are weird. I don't get as creeped out by Small World figures. I imagine that would change if I was there alone at night doing maintenance, and then they started talking or something like that. Same thing with these Superstar Limo animatronics. Byron, are you unnerved by this ride at all?
I don't know. It's got like a used car salesman kind of like vibe to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like what you would feel like when you watch like a snuff film. You know, there's something dangerous about it.
It's like, you don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Why aren't you on California Screaming right
I don't
now?
know what Regis Philbin's doing, like, you know, popping out. I don't know where he's trying to lure me into.
Dishonorable mentions, we did discuss, should that be rides that are unintentionally scary? Should that just be the least scariest ride?
Okay, I see.
Unintentionally scary, we couldn't do that because I realized the number one ride would then be the dishonorable mention because there's no ride that's more unintentionally scary. Well, you could make an argument Claude was trying to scare your ass.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't get what he wanted with it.
Yeah, he really took out his anger. This is like when George Lucas was going through a divorce and gave us Temple of Doom, which is one of the most like scary, just like mean Indiana Jones films. Byron, what is your honorable mention?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I had two on my list that did not make it on here, which is all right. They weren't that high on my list, but now I'm like having a hard time determining which one I want to put as an honorable. Maybe I'll mention both. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to mention both.
Okay, let's see what.
The less popular one is It's Tough to Be a Bug.
Okay, I'm going to jump on then.
Oh, I didn't even think
I'm going to
about
jump on because that's my honorable mention. Byron, you had this at number 4.
Dang.
I had this at number 5.
That's my unofficial 6 then.
I think it's an easy one to miss because it is like the scary part of it is very brief, but boy, is it really scary.
Is it brief?
It's like about 3/4 through the show. Like it's for the most part, like 80% of the experience is very wholesome. And hey, like this is the thing that bugs do. Yeah. It's tough to be a bug, you know.
I'm
We're
gonna disagree with you there.
Like, and then all of a sudden this menacing animatronic of Hopper pops out. And next thing you know, he's like, let me introduce you to my friends or whatever. Like, or he's actually giving like a pretty like valid criticism. He's basically like human beings have been attacking us for all these years and stuff like, and
it's a Joker monologue. It's amazing.
You know what? It's not a Joker monologue. You know what monologue it is? It's a Magneto. It's a Magneto monologue.
Oh, it is a Magneto
Hopper
monologue.
Is the Magneto of the Bugs Life universe, and Flick is the Charles Xavier. Hopper, because in this ride, Flick gives you honorable. He gives you the honorable bug ears, which makes you into bugs. And then Hopper sees that and is like, "Why are you helping the humans? They do nothing but kill us." And then he shows a montage of all humans killing bugs.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you should exterminate.
He's just kind of a jerk.
But then he proceeds to give us all the validation we need to have this animosity towards bugs.
Maybe it's time you honorary bugs got a taste of your own medicine.
Because he then like everything goes dark. He like instructs these like hornets or stingers to like essentially like.
Here's the quote. He says, "Hornets, arm your stingers and attack." And this is in pitch black.
Yes, and then this little horn thing like gets you in the back, like it's on your seats.
It jabs you.
And like the entire. And by the way, like I revisited the footage, like a POV footage of this. Like if there's like a Monsters Inc. like scream meter, like during this sequence. It's like, I think it's like just under the likes of like an extraterrestrial or.
It must
I watched a POV of it as recent, that was recorded as recent as a year ago. And these kids are hollering. Like they are screaming like they are being killed in this theater. It's very funny.
And there's
another thing, the spiders that come down from above.
Clearly,
and they're
Black
like
Widows.
they're like right here. They're
hanging
very
down
close
from the
to you.
ceiling.
He says Black Widows descend. They come from the ceiling and they look like the spiders from Cloverfield.
Yes.
Exactly.
Like,
with their glowing eyes and their
strobes
features are
going off, like a lot of really good red lighting.
It's so terrifying.
For about 30 seconds or so, this thing goes to 11. And then they actually give you, I think, another jump scare at the really end of the ride.
They do. I forgot it's bug eyes, not bug ears, so you could see the bugs.
They poke you in the butt.
There's like those things that run across the floor, right? It's like kind of a similar effect to what they used to do with like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience with the like the rats or the mice or whatever.
The Beatles on
how do they do that? Is it just air?
It's the announcer comes in at the end. Yeah, it's probably just like moving air. Where he says basically like, oh, like, I don't know. He basically makes a reference to like maggots and stuff being on the ground.
Let the maggots and spiders and caterpillars exit first or something.
I don't know what year It's Tough to Be a Bug started, but I do remember being quite young and white knuckling it through this show
because they used to have it at DCA.
Well, they used to have it at California Adventure. It's Bugs Land,
and it still exists under the Tree of Life at Animal Kingdom,
which is crazy.
Not for long.
Not for long. It's not long for this earth.
I talked about this in my D23 sort of like announcements videos. It's being replaced, as we know, by Zootopia.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it as long as it's still terrifying. If they still make it absolutely terrifying, screaming children, I'll be okay with that.
How could they make Zootopia that scary?
Perhaps I'm a little jaded, Dallin, but
keep the insects around, keep the spiders, but
I'm sorry.
I don't think they will. No, I don't think they will. I don't think they will. They should.
I also disagree with you, Byron, in that I think the whole show is scary. Because even in the part that's supposed to be fun, when Flick is like, they're like, let me demonstrate to you what these bugs can do.
That's true.
Every single bug he introduces is a boogeyman.
It assaults you.
They assault you. Like the first person they bring out is the spider guy, Chili.
Yeah.
And he says, Chilean tarantulas throw poison quills at their enemies with deadly accuracy. And then he goes, this part's one of my favorites. And then he gets off stage and you have this tarantula trying to hit these like pellets that are being flung over the audience's head. You feel the wind of the poison quills going past you.
My God.
It's horrifying. And then after that, they bring out an acid throwing termite The quote is, "Our next guest is a soldier termite who defends his mound by spraying intruders with acid. That's right, acid." End quote.
Yeah, it's just acid. Like, what do you do with that
by the
information?
way, I think we could do a top 5 for Disney attractions where something farts in your face, or
Then they
Right.
they bring the stink bug out and then farts in your face. Also, another thing about the termite, a bug pops up on stage and the termite shoots that bug with acid, and that bug, I guess, dies on the spot.
I am the Terminator. Oh no.
And then he turns his head to the audience and goes, "I detect more intruders."
I detect more intruders.
No, they're not intruders. No, they're honorary bugs.
No.
oh, that's right.
And then they spray
Yeah,
you
he's
with
like a little
acid.
geeky guy. Yeah.
And then Flick comes out on stage before he sprays acid on us and basically begs for our lives, saying, "Hey, no, they're not intruders, they're not intruders." And he goes, "No, intruders must be exterminated." And then he
doubles down.
and he sprays us with acid. It's a scary show. And then Hopper comes. So like the whole time you're getting assaulted, essentially. I saw a Reddit thread that this is among, the actual thread was a bug's, It's Tough to Be a Bug is the cruelest ride at Disney World, which I think if Snow White's Scary Adventures was still around, that would be the cruelest ride. But I think currently this or Dinosaur, they're both pretty cruel.
That or
Stitch
Dinosaur
was still around.
It's close.
I would say
Yeah.
that wasn't. I couldn't stand that one. That was insulting.
But I did have this on my list as well. I'm happy you had it. And I guess we could two for that. That's my honorable mention as well.
Oh, great. Then the other one I would add is I think we tend to forget as park heads how scary Indiana Jones Adventure is. I think it's scary.
I think there are parts that for first-time riders could be scary. I mean, the snake never really scared me. It looks like a cartoon snake. The skeleton that drops out at you is easily missed, but if it catches you right, I guess it could be.
I guess I should
extremely
rephrase.
scary.
It's more of an honorable mention for kids. I think this ride still terrifies kids.
Yeah.
I have seen, with going with families and stuff, seeing like 6-year-olds, which was
That's
the age
fair,
that I
yes.
went on it the first time. They will put their head down and cover their ears the entire, like, as soon as the ride starts, they're like, oh, hell no. And I think that it still has that effect. I, as a 6-year-old, was horrified by this ride, although I did enjoy it, but I found it to be very scary. And I mean, there is
fair.
impending doom throughout the entire experience.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Mara melts in front of you, which is kind of spooky.
That's kind of cool, I guess. I guess I just loved Indiana Jones growing up. So I was just stoked to see
that's true.
Indy. Like anytime I saw a snake or any of the the dart throwers, I always just thought, well, Indy's going to protect me.
Right.
And he does. He does protect us the entire time.
Yeah, against his will, but he does.
That's true. He's not happy about it. Had to look, didn't you? Let's move on to dishonorable mentions.
Oh, I'm so
okay,
excited
now
for
this is where we list an attraction that we believe is the least scary ride at Disney. Dishonorable, I will say, feels strong, just because it's not the fault of these rides that they're not scary. They're not trying to be scary, but we had to go opposite. We had to go oppo. So let's start with Dallin. What do you think is the least scary ride in all of Disney parks?
Not only is it scaring, not only is it not scary, it's extremely disappointing. Especially after going to Disneyland for so long. This ride had been closed for like 8 years while they built another attraction that I actually really do like. The Walt Disney World Railroad is not scary at all. Slow moving outside during the day. Compare that to the Disneyland Railroad. You have the dinosaur scene, the Grand Canyon with the lightning strike, and that is like not scary, but I could see some kids being freaked out by like the jump scare lightning or whatever. But the Disney World Railroad is just us, because like you think of other rides that may not be scary. Dumbo, sure, it spins. You go up a little high, maybe. Teacups, maybe someone is afraid they'll get sick. The Walt Disney World Railroad is the most inoffensive, bland railroad I've been on at a Disney park.
Dead space.
Nothing happens, and then it just kind of ends. So that's my vote.
It's I mean,
and you can't take snacks on it either. At Disneyland, you can take your snacks on. Disney World, they will yell at you.
and they don't have the primeval
not fair.
world there, so and that's huge. Byron and I, we can't wait to cover the Disneyland Railroad on
So
this podcast, just because there are some moments, if you ride that at specific times of the day or night, that are just magical. But we'll save that for the episode.
Absolutely.
Byron, what's your dishonorable mention?
King Arthur's Carousel.
Okay.
Or I guess in Magic Kingdom it'd be what? The Regal?
Prince Charming.
Or Prince Charming's Regal Carousel. I mean, look, you can find a carousel everywhere. It's in the most harmless spot of the park. You know, anyone can go. It's like pretty much everyone's first little ride. It's as harmless as can be. I don't know if anyone, I think it's the least scary ride. I mean, there's plenty that aren't scary, but I think it's the safest choice.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like, what would I have zero fear of taking my 3-year-old nephew on? And for me, it is the storybook boats. Just because there's nothing scary about it. They move extremely slow.
I used to be scared of the storybook.
How? Going into Monstro's mouth could be a little scary to the kids.
Because you're the first, like when you're approaching the ride, the boat just disappears into a whale.
You're right. I forgot about that.
That's a core memory for me as a toddler.
Okay, you know what? I'm changing my answer then. I'm going Dumbo.
Dumbo's
okay,
good.
Dumbo.
I thought about Dumbo as well. There's like a little more like there's like more motion. You're kind of flying around, but still like.
Honestly, you might have nailed it. The carousel might be it because you're in the Fantasyland ambiance.
You're on the
ground. You're not moving that fast.
You don't even have to sit on a horsey that bobs.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, you might be right. Because I definitely wouldn't pick the Disneyland Railroad because Primeval Whirl was actually on my top 10 because that T-Rex scares the shit out of me. It always did.
Yeah.
Everything around that carousel is just kind of good vibes, and that's just what you think of like core Disney.
That's right.
Happy music, bright lights, bright colors. Yeah, good time.
Really quickly, let's just to wrap this all up. Could you guys each say your personal top 5 lists, just 5 to 1, starting with Dallin?
Okay, my number 5 is Dinosaur. Number 4 is Alien Encounter / Stitch's Great Escape. Number 3 is Superstar Limo because it's so uncanny. Number 2 is an empty haunted mansion at night alone. And then number 1, of course, is Snow White and Her Adventures, I believe is what it was called before they changed the name to Scary Adventures.
And then mine is number 5 was It's Tough to Be a Bug. Number 4 was Dinosaur. Number 3 was Tower of Terror, Disneyland Paris. Number 2, Extra Terrestrial Alien Encounter. And number 1, Snow White Scary Adventures, pre-December 16th, 1994, when it got rethemed.
It's great. I got 5, Haunted Mansion. 4, It's Tough to Be a Bug. 3, Indiana Jones. 2, Tower of Terror, and 1, Dinosaur.
I think I'm proud of this aggregate list. Honestly, I think it's pretty accurate.
I think our combined list is probably the best.
Hindsight, outcome. I think Alien Encounter and Snow White definitely should have been on my list. But then again, I'm glad we still got to talk about the other rides.
No, that's true.
I'm glad they still ultimately made the list because they definitely deserve to be high up there.
It added some spice.
Absolutely.
I guess that does it for the show.
All right.
Well, I think the last thing here to do then is thank you again, Dallin, for coming on and gracing us with your presence. It's always fun to have you on the pod. We'll have you on the pod as much as you're willing to come on.
Absolutely.
Last time, if you didn't know, Dallin was on here to defend the honor of living with the land.
And I swindled you two into making it a world-class attraction.
I wouldn't say you swindled us. I think we already were on board. We were on the boat already. We had tickets.
It's a good ride.
We had tickets to ride. But make sure you go check out Dallin's channel, Offhand Disney, on YouTube.com, and support him over there because he's making great stuff. Dallin, is there anything that you want to plug that's coming down the pipeline that you're working on?
Oh man, I don't know. I appreciate it. I got by the time this comes out, we'll be into the spooky season, so get ready for some Haunted Mansion content. If you want Haunted Mansion, I'm the place to be. So
that's true. This is spooky season when you guys are watching, listening to this, and Dallin always goes hard in the paint for spooky season. So if you're thirsty for more, head on over to his channel. He's got some great stuff over there. But other than that does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. If you're watching, make sure to leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to keep us alive. And if you're listening, please rate the podcast 5 stars and subscribe as well. And consider supporting us by joining our fourth wall and becoming a park hopper, as we're calling it, by heading to fyapod.com. As mentioned up top, it'll help us keep this madness going, but you'll also get up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to the free main show you're listening to and watching now. And you'll also find our merch there as well. Follow the pod socials at FYA Pod everywhere. I'm at Ryan Bergara everywhere, but Twitter, where I'm Ryan S. Bergara, because there's a Ryan Bergara in the Philippines who took it. And Byron is at Byron A. Marin across all socials. Thank you guys for spending your time with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys on the next ride. Bye-bye.